Yeah, so I really enjoyed your talk I came to at the Driftwood Dragonfly. It was about
Mhm.
herbs, and we covered the Wheel of the Year, which I am so excited to hear somebody else in person talk about this because it gets kind of swept up into woo-woo and Wicca, and that's it's really unfortunate because I find it to be a better system to live by than the Gregorian calendar.
Yeah.
Just naturally makes more sense if people are so starved for connection with themselves, connection with others, connection with anything greater than themselves outside of like the big religions, you know? And the wheel of the year is a really good stepping stone for people who are like, I don't know, I don't really connect with all of the religious stuff, especially like in this area. I grew up in this area. Are you
Mhm.
from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
from North
you get it.
Alabama.
All right, so you get it. The only thing, especially before the internet, which, came about when I was a teenager, you didn't have any other options. It was just Christianity or nothing. It was
Yeah.
atheism or Christian. There were no other options. I didn't even know there were other religions in the world. I grew up Church of Christ, which is super strict, and
Oh.
none of it resonated, and it all just felt really disconnected. It felt like there were people all around me all the time, but I felt so lonely and nobody wanted to discuss the things that we were even discussing in church, It made no sense to
Yeah.
me. And they were
Mhm.
preaching one thing and then doing another. And so I turned towards fantasy, like Harry Potter and
Yes.
fairies and anything like that, dragons. Magic is where I kind of turned because one thing that did stick with me as a kid in church was that Jesus said that anything he could do, we could do. So I was
Mhm.
like, oh, magic, awesome, love it. Can we study that? And everybody was like, don't be ridiculous. Magic isn't real. And I'm like, but you just said, I'm so confused. I don't understand. So the Wheel of the Year was something that grounds all of that went on a huge tangent, and I do want to bring it back to the grounded nature of how the Wheel of the Year you can walk outside and it just makes sense because at this time of year, this is what's going on with the seasons and nature, and the trees are blooming during this time, so you feel that fresh energy of the rejuvenation of spring, and that's when we should be setting our goals instead of the dead of winter, which is energetically kind of just dead. So it doesn't make any sense to set our New Year's resolutions when all our body wants to do is hibernate.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. Like I had a similar experience being raised in North Alabama. It's very much like you said, like you either do Christian or you're an atheist. Like it almost feels purposeful to kind of keep us enclosed in our own little bubble. And I find that really sad. But I also experienced the same kind of thing. And then once I got out of high school, I started going to college and experiencing things. And I know that's part of like the reason of, keeping us enclosed. Like you don't need to go outside the bubble. You don't need to go to college and figure these things out because then it burst our bubble. Right.
Mm.
Um, so once I started like exploring a little bit more and feeling that it just makes more sense to me to follow nature. Like we are from nature, right? We feel it in our bones, like you said. Whenever we get like a big burst of energy from spring, we're feeling that in our bodies, like energetically. But it's also scientific too. We're feeling the groundingness from under. We're feeling the warmth on our skin. We're feeling the air change, all the pressures changing. We hear the different sounds coming from the birds that are talking to each other, and we're interpreting that through our bodies, and it gives us that rush of energy. But in the winter, we don't feel that. We want to be reclused, and we get introspective and really go inside of ourselves because that's what we're designed to do. Um, and you can call that, science, or you can call it, energetics, or um, the woo woo part of it too. But I think it, no matter where you come from on the spectrum of religion or spirituality or science, it's all the same thing. Like, we feel
It
it
is.
whether or not we can describe it or not. Like, it's there, and that's what our bodies are designed to handle.
Yeah, it's really frustrating when it is all the same thing. There's no differentiation between uh, the woo-woo of witchcraft to the science of nature to the religious beliefs, like the spirituality. It's all the same thing, okay? Because whatever is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're too busy fighting over the words and the structure to find unity in the truth. And, like again, we're fighting over what the truth is. But I think that we're too attached to finding words that make sense to us, with a
Mm-hmm.
story that makes sense to us, to realize that it's bigger than any of us could ever begin to understand or explain. So
Right.
maybe we could instead focus on the aspects that just are helpful, you know?
Yeah.
Be kind to each other.
Yeah. And I think there's also like a disconnect of like our feelings versus what we can explain, what we can't explain. And we're it's almost like we're constantly bombarded with that you have to have. And even in like, so like religious communities, scientific communities, we're saying it's all the same, right? Like, we're always trying to explain something, and being able to sit with that and sit with what you're feeling instead of what you can regurgitate to somebody else and teach somebody else, or a lot of it is just being. And we are so disconnected that from that as a society, because we're in this constant state of like, we have to work, we have to meet these deadlines, we have to make sure that our economy is strong and continuing going. And you could go on a whole other route of like, what the hidden agenda behind that is, as far as like capitalism, or whatever you want to call our structure that we have specifically in America, but
Terrible.
generally, yeah.
Mhm.
In other countries too, but yeah, like we're feeling that. And it, as humans, I feel like there's such a there's such a sadness I feel for what we've lost
Yeah,
in the ability to feel. And that's not just empathy. I mean, of course, we're definitely lacking empathy these days. I mean, let's be real. Like, people are really uh, off track as far as what matters in this world. um, but the empathy of or like the feeling of what's around us, and people keep saying go touch grass. Yeah, you need to, because you need to feel what's happening outside, and feel the earth beneath your feet, and regain that primalness. We're losing our primalness, we're losing what matters to be a human, what makes us different from any other animal. I mean, we're still animals, don't get me wrong. I still believe like we still have, you know, very like specific instincts, but um I think tweaking the knob too far to say like, we're humans, we're not animals, we have to explain everything. It's we need to tweak it back just a little bit. I mean, even just a little bit to back to, let's feel as animals and humans that can explain, and maybe just accept that we can't explain it either. um
hmm
because that helps us, mentally, physically, spiritually, in every realm, and we could all be more connected in that way too.
Yeah, we rush too quickly to being the teacher, for sure. And we
Yes.
forget to sit and be the student. And then we're like, uh, there's a difference between book work and field work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we read all the books or whatever, and we gain all the knowledge. I put that in quotation marks. And then we think we know, but
Yeah.
going out into the field and actually doing the practice is completely different. And you don't actually know until you do those things. Like
Yes.
in martial arts, we can kick a bag 500 times and we're just kicking the bag, kicking the bag, kicking it over and over again. We know the structure, we know all the little critiques, the posture, all the little muscle uh, mechanisms that we have to do to kick the bag. And we're just kicking the bag over and over and over again. We think we know. And then suddenly one day, that 687th time you kick the bag, it's like something clicks and falls into place. And suddenly it's like, oh crap, I understand now. And like I didn't understand, but now I do. And that's not something that you can teach from a book. Like
Yes.
words are so limiting. And that is our problem, is that we just need to hurry up and develop telepathy because, because we can only explain things to a certain magnitude. And
Right.
most things go well beyond that magnitude of ability to explain. You have to actually experience it to understand the subtleties in between the words.
Yeah. And that speaks to my heart so heavily too, because I feel like my mentality towards a lot of things, and it could be like, a fault to my extent of trying to do the best of everything, right? Like I'm always like pushing myself harder and harder and harder. And I don't know if that's a personality trait or something that's learned from society. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I've realized like even after going to school, and it definitely can kind of get in your ego a little bit, right? Like you're studying it and you're like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Like I took that test, I did my dissertation on this, and I know exactly what I'm doing. And I have to check myself sometimes, and I have been actively, because I got to that point where I was realizing, like, just because you're in school and you're honing in on something very specific that you care about, or like that you feel like you know a lot about, you're still a long ways away from being able to explain it in a way that someone else can feel and like completely understand what you're saying. And even so, like, it doesn't really matter if you can explain it or not. It's whether or not you can live it, right?
Mm.
And I feel that so heavily, because I'm constantly trying to almost like reschool myself in a different way
Hmm.
after getting out of the degrees and stuff, of trying to teach myself and allow myself that opportunity to just experience it. And there, especially in herbalism, there's a completely different route to take from books to going outside and being able to identify an herb and like picking it and knowing for sure that that's what's going to help your body. It's a such a that's another, you can call it woo woo or whatever, but it's also, to me, it's a primal thing. It's like we can use this for any science or any kind of topic in nature, but specifically for me, it's like sitting with that herb and feeling what I'm feeling through it. And it kind of sounds crazy to people that aren't familiar with the process, but giving ourselves that not only the opportunity and like the responsibility of connecting ourselves to our primal selves and allowing ourselves to feel it, I think is very, very important just to the human experience in general. And we see that in nature too. Like we see animals they're not explaining how to do something. They're not sitting there having a class on, birds aren't having a class on how to fly. They're letting their babies fall out of the nest and learn it themselves.
Hmm.
And I think, as a parent, that also is important for us to remember too. You got to let your kid try, otherwise they're not going to learn. And that's the best teacher we have, is learning through doing.
Hmm.
And you can be book smart all day, but if you're not out there experiencing it, then you're never gonna be 100%.
Absolutely. We've gotten away from well, they've taught us not to trust ourselves, you know?
Yes.
So that's a big problem. I teach yoga. I have students all the time. They're asking me questions about their own body in ways that, like, I can tell you the general, like, how the muscles work, how the body functions, how it mechanically moves from a general standpoint. But when it comes like down to you specifically and your body, nobody outside of you can really tell you the correct way to move to where this pose works for you, or how long is the ultimate, the best length of time to hold a plank, you know?
Yeah.
Like it just kind of, it's you that has to talk to you, and people do not want to, for a moment, talk to themselves and their body and try to figure it out on their own. I mean,
Yeah.
some people do, and there it seems to be like a extreme for the most part.
Yeah.
In either you only want to try to do it yourself, and that can cause injury and stuff, or you don't want to do anything yourself and you want someone to hold your hand the whole way. Which I mean, like we can. That's drives me crazy to do so, but we can, you know, but you have to build that confidence. Just
Yeah.
like foraging and working with plants, it's scary.
Hmm.
They've kind of designed it to be scary for, you know, because it takes, if you're connected to nature, it takes away the power of like the pharmaceutical companies or
Hmm.
the, I mean, most things do lead back to those people
Yeah.
specifically. But
Yeah. And
as far as like feeling it though, um, I have tons of houseplants are the only thing I've really been able to get to establish. I've been gardening ever since I moved out of my parents' house. So like for, God, I wasn't prepared to math. Since I was like 21. So, well, it was before that. Like 19. We'll say like 19. So 15 years, something like. I've done a garden every single year and I've never had any kind of success really. And man, I put a lot of effort and work into it. But the problem is that I'm a full send type of person. So once I started from scratch, I felt like I needed to not only do all of the plants and herbs, all of the garden, like, but, and not just grow them, but like, and not just grow them and eat them, okay? Because like it's simple, Savannah. You just eat the pepper. Like, what do you mean you need to know what to do with it? I'm like, well, I need to know how to dry it, how to can it, how to like what is
Yeah.
the medicinal benefits of it? How much iron is in it? How much like I'm ridiculous and you
I
can't
relate to that
overwhelm
so
yourself
much.
like that. Sorry?
Yeah. I said I relate to that so much. um, yeah, I was just talking to my husband last night about that, like the level of full send that you these expectations we put on ourselves.
Yeah, they're terrible. We
It's
think we have to
ridiculous.
know all the things. Like if we garden, we feel like to be a respectable gardener, we have to know all of the things about the garden.
Hmm.
And then people come to me because they know I'm so full send into this like for 15 years now. And they're asking me questions. I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing to tell people is to just talk to the plant.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean
Yeah.
talk to the plant? Like, it'll tell you. It'll tell you if it's thirsty. It'll tell you if it's getting too much sun or not enough sun. It'll tell
Hmm.
you, but that sounds crazy.
And they can tell you other things too, like if you ever do start getting into the foraging or um herbal realm of things, the colors, and this is found a lot in especially traditional Chinese medicine. For example, like things that are red you think about for your heart, so you might be able to find particular berries or something that's that is going to help improve circulation or going to help that blood flow, just based on the fact that it's red. um, and that's something that we've been taught to avoid because red is like bad.
Danger.
um, yeah, yeah, and it's having to reteach yourself how to be. um, I keep using the word primal because I don't know how else to explain it. It's a primal human. It's our instinctual selves, and it's so sad that we've been conditioned so hard not to accept it, um, and to and not only just accept it but like sit with it and use it in a daily practice. And it doesn't have to be related to religion, and it doesn't have to be related to Wicca or any kind of specific realm of spirituality. Everything is so personal, and I think
Hmm.
people forget that too. Like you were saying with yoga, like people's bodies and the way that they're moving. Like, just for example, like what if somebody has a particular injury? Like, that's just one
Exactly.
example of how individualized we are, right? And that's kind of like an extreme measure, because there's other things that go on within us too.
Or
We're
like a genetic
constantly
anomaly.
right, and we're constantly having all these things going on inside of our bodies. Whether it's like a mental, physical, the different systems within our body, the way that they communicate with each other can be different, even just
Hmm.
based on genetics itself.
Hmm.
And all of these things add up. And if we're not taking the time to sit with ourselves, then we get in this mindset of like, oh, I can just Google what this problem is and it'll give me my answer. And that's how I'm going to fix it.
Hmm.
Or specifically with herbalism, I'm having this gut issue. What herbs are great for the gut?
Hmm.
Well, I mean, you could have different issues with your gut. It could be partially due to the way you're eating, it could be your genetics, it could be your movement, your environmental exposures. Um, all of these things add up to who we are as individuals. And it's more than just like our personalities and the way that our quirks and the things that we enjoy. It's every single process that we have going on is
Hmm.
individualized to us. And we're so like, I think that's just magical. Thinking about how different we can be, no matter how similar we might seem on the outside, and stripping us of that version of individuality, I think is one of the greatest disservices we've done to ourselves as a society. Of like, you know, that strips us of being able to be empathetic towards somebody else and what
Hmm.
they're personally going through. um, and that's what's keeping us separated. um, not only like mentally but physically too. Like, you can feel the difference. You almost like put up a guard on yourself. Or I've caught myself doing that anyway. I feel like other people do too. Just because you think that you're supposed to be in this particular box of human. And it's really
Hmm.
sad, but I think sitting with ourselves and taking that time is what we need.
Yeah. I always relate it back to when we actually lived in villages, when villages were still a thing.
Yeah.
And how we needed the approval and love and connection of the people in the village in order to survive. Like point blank,
Yes.
period. It was not, life was not life is still not a solo act. And
Mm-hmm.
we really treat it like it is. We feel like we're supposed to be able to handle all the things, do all the things by ourselves. And it's not a one man job. None of it.
Yeah.
None of it. The fact that we have to eat 3 times a day is obnoxious and used to. And, plus the laundry is not a one person job, especially if, like, maybe one person's laundry is mostly a one person job. But when you start adding other people, children especially, it becomes, you know, as a mom of two, you have essentially 4 people's worth of laundry, and it's just one person doing it. And then you have to make sure everybody eats 3 times a day, and then you have to, make money somehow to keep the lights on and the house bill, the house payment that keeps going on up because of inflation and the area growing, and it's just never ending. But anyway, backing up, in village times, they understood this and they all worked together, and you were able to more simply find your place in the village because maybe not. It's not a maybe. It's definitely not everybody is gifted with making delicious food, you know?
Yeah.
So if you were interested in the making of the meals, you would naturally gravitate towards the other people who were making the meals, and then you help them make the meals. And ta-da, you've found your place in the village. Um, and if someone was odd, or, your loved ones would, it's a natural instinct to wrangle in your loved ones to conformity of the village because, again, there are certain jobs in the village that need to be done. And if you're eating the food and you're creating a mess and you're yada yada, whatever it is, not contributing to the village, and then the village starts to get animosity towards you, you're at great risk of being ostracized and pushed out, which means almost certain death for the most part, for
Yeah.
most people. So your loved ones would wrangle you in. And so it just creates a cycle. And then, you fast forward to modern times where the world is completely different. We're still trying to wrangle each other into conformity of the structure of the village, but the village is structured in such a way that doesn't help people find their place. It doesn't help people find a connection with other people. And, like I could go on 1,000 different tangents on 1,000 different things from
Yeah.
this point.
And yeah, and it's seems like it's the pyramid. It's building the village up so one person can be in charge and experience all the rewards of
Yeah, I heard something yesterday. It was like we have
it.
primitive brains and like operating systems. We have primitive operating systems in a medieval uh, societal structure dealing with futuristic technology, and it just completely tears
That makes
our
sense.
system in several different ways to where nothing is working in synchronicity and alignment, which again brings us back because like everybody feels so hopeless. They're like, what do we do about this? And I feel like I for sure, and it sounds like you similarly believe that the answers are getting back in touch with nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like nature is one of our primal teachers, the teacher that we should go to first, the teacher we should check in with. I mean, you're being outside with nature should be your best friend. And I'm very guilty of not um, spending as much time with my teachers as I should, especially with everything we're expected to do. I'm also a mom and I work and I'm pregnant, so I'm like trying to like navigate another child coming into the family, and then you have all these other responsibilities that we're expected to take care of. So I'm by no means like um, perfect at doing it, but I do strongly feel in my heart that if we're not checking in and taking the time to listen to our best teachers outside, then we can't fully understand ourselves. We can't keep ourselves from getting wrapped up in these things that we're being expected to do, or even like the drone mentality of like conformity and staying and being this particular type of person, keeping our individualities and really thriving in this world that's built to to keep us from thriving. Um, I definitely need to do better about it, but it doesn't take much. That's the good thing. Like it only takes a second to go outside and even if it's just 5 minutes a day and just you know you don't have to hug a tree. You don't have to like sing a song or like gather hands with somebody and make a ritual out of it. It's just simply being there, listening, with any part of nature that'll tell you, and that's whether it's plants, trees, animals, even bugs. I mean, people like to hate on bugs for whatever reason, but they're the biggest backbone to our livelihood. The water movement, the way the air is moving, the clouds, anything. Just
Mhm.
taking that time to really listen and harbor in and remind yourself where you come from on a more broader scale, I think can slowly help over time to help keep us sane in this crazy world that we're living in.
Absolutely, getting outside as often as possible.
Yeah.
I always talked about smokers and how they do not care what the weather is like. They are
Mm-hmm.
going to go outside upwards of 5+ times a day and spend 5 minutes in nature. And
Yeah.
in that way, they're doing a little bit better than a lot of us
Yeah.
because, everybody's like, oh, it's cold, I can't go out there. Oh, it's raining, I can't go out there. Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's whatever, whatever, whatever it is. And we're stuck in these, you know, environmentally controlled boxes all day with the artificial lighting. And sunlight itself gives us certain vitamins and nutrients that we need to just be able to be happy, to stave off the depression that affects every single one of us because we're not living how our bodies need us to live. And just going outside for a few, I have had to trick myself into, so go check the mail. That's one way to get outside. We compost. So we have to take the compost out every single day. We have a container sitting on our kitchen sink or next to our kitchen
Mm-hmm.
sink. And we just throughout the day toss everything in there. And then once a day or once every other day, that's a reason to go out there and be outside for just a second. We have pets, we have dogs and we go outside and we feed them, we brush them. We recently got chickens, so that's another reason to go outside and make sure they're doing okay, break up their water if it's too cold outside. And a lot of people aren't interested in homesteading and farm life, and I get that and whatnot. But we also do a lot of camping. We do a lot of kayaking. We play pickleball, and that gets you outside if the weather's nice and there are people to do it. Any little piece of getting outside is going to make a world of difference because we've locked ourselves in an artificial world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sometimes even literally.
yeah, yeah, with like VR and stuff.
Yeah.
Or just scrolling on our phones. That's being locked in an artificial world. And
Yeah.
our nervous systems aren't calibrated for that. It's too much input all the time. And going outside is a release. It's creating space in our life because, outside is spacious. So, we feel overwhelmed, we feel constricted, we feel tight. It's the energy, right? You tapping into the energy of how you feel. A lot of people who feel depressed, anxious, stressed out, overwhelmed. It's a constricting type of feeling. You can literally feel the tightness, like the air around you is trying to suffocate you, and all of your muscles are tense. And you walk outside, and all of that pretty well immediately melts away if you let it. And it
Yeah.
is the practice. It's again with the book word. We know that stretching's good for us. We know that sunlight and getting outside is good for us. We know that gratitude and positive affirmations, the great I am, whatever, whatever, drink your tea, eat your broccoli. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you're not putting it into practice, you don't actually understand. And then
Yeah.
if you put it into practice and you start to actually understand, it becomes like, wow, but also, we're too hard on ourselves and we think that we should have it all figured out. And we forget that we're all children, no matter what age we are. And at no point in our life or is there an age we hit where we're just suddenly supposed to know all the things. We
Right.
learn by making mistakes, but we're all terrified to make a mistake because
Yeah.
then what? What's going to happen? What are people going to think? What am I going to think about myself? Oh no, I'm messing up my children. Oh no, I should have done this 10 years ago and now I'm afraid to start. Like fill in the
And the truth of
box.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because we've set these expectations for ourselves. So what's the point of making these rules and then beating ourselves up if we don't follow them? That it's very silly
Uh-huh.
we've come to do that, and I catch myself doing it, especially like with motherhood, like, not being the best and that full send mentality. So like, I've got to be the best mother I can possibly be, and I don't want my kid to resent me 10 years from now, and I've got to think about what they're going to think later on. Are they going to be appreciative of what I'm doing now? Are they going to be upset with me? um and the reality is like, we are all, it's all chaos, it's all soup, as I like to say. Like, we're thrown into this big pot together, and we're expected to make, lines out of it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's always
Mm-mm.
chaotic. Nature's
Mhm.
chaotic. That's, again, our teachers. That's what we should be learning from. That's where we should be connecting. um not only like on a physical, energetic, vibrational level, but in the way that we process what we're given to. We're doing the best with what we've got, so
Mhm.
to say, or most people try to anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and and that's what we're given, is chaos anyway. So why not
Mhm.
kind of lean into it a little bit more and forgive yourself, as much as you can, as frequently as you can, um, to accept that, you know it's there's no actual rules in nature like that.
Mhm.
There's no guidelines. We kind of just have to adapt, and that's how we should treat every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. We create prisons for ourselves and then fight against them once we, yeah,
It's so silly, isn't it?
it is. But, like you said, we're doing the best that we can with what we have available. And it seems, I think that's why talking to people helps a lot to like break down those cages because we find ourselves stuck in these patterns and we just day by day stay in these patterns and then we have emotional turmoil or whatever, something's bothering us, and then we talk to somebody about it, and then it's like, oh, that's actually super simple. We could just stop doing the thing. But
Yeah.
it's not as simple as that because we are stuck in our ways. We're creatures of habit and we like our patterns and we like our straight lines, the A plus B equals C, which is more ingrained in Western society than it is Eastern society. They have
Isn't that
more.
crazy?
Isn't it wonderful? Because I'm so thankful that we have examples of all the different types of ways that we can formulate the human existence. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to be this way or that way. And, you know, religious structure has had a lot to play in all of the areas, really. So, like the different religions, it doesn't really, but over here with the strictness of A plus B equals C, and that's the only way of doing it. And that is not true at all. There's a million different ways to do every single thing that there is to do. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's too much pressure to figure out your own way. And it's scary. And it's, especially if you're doing something that is not like what everybody around you is doing. It's safety in numbers. And if you look around, I always talk about how when I was graduating high school, literally everybody was either, because once you graduate high school, you have to figure out a career path, right? And literally every single person was either a cosmetologist, nurse, or school teacher. So essentially, those were the three options I had as a female, unless I wanted to join the boys and go to the factory, like
Yeah.
that was essentially, and I was like, I, that's it. That's really it. In the whole grand world of things that exist, that those are my options. But at that point in time in my life, yeah, those were my options, honestly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
trying to formulate your own path is not only terrifying, but it is so hard to do in and of itself. And then the difficulty factor is just freaking multiplied by 1,000 when everybody around you are like, whoa, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you
It's
doing?
very isolating.
There are paths right here. Why are you not choosing one of these paths? I don't understand. We laid out some paths for you, three of them. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
The options.
Yeah. But a
And
lot of people do
yeah.
conform to one of those three paths, and then they wake up when they're 40 and they're in a panic. They're like, oh, I don't have a clue who I am. I am
Mm-hmm.
not happy. I don't like any of what I've created so far, but and I've been trying to please all of these people and none of them are happy, and I'm not happy. Now nobody's happy. But it's funny that the way that our brains are wired to want to people please and make everybody happy, and yet nobody's happy.
Yeah. It's very it's depressing if you let yourself get into your feelings about it. But I I've felt that too, like um especially coming out of high school and feeling that pressure to choose one thing. And then if you say like, oh well, I'm considering, when I got out of high school I wanted to be an actor. So I got really into theater and I found a little tribe in there, and it's different group of people compared to what I was used to. um, but even then, having such passion for that, the next day, like 5 years down the road, I'm like, maybe I want to do something else. And that, to me, I've had to learn how to embrace that sense of myself where I'm constantly wanting to change things.
Hmm.
I do that physically. The even like my favorite color will change. Everything in my house has to be rearranged suddenly, where I'm just like, I don't like this anymore. I want to scrap everything and start over again. Feeling that deep desire to constantly change, I've really had to learn to love that part of myself, because I think it's something that our society keeps us from doing in order to keep us on a straight, narrow mindset. That
Hmm.
same, like categorizing, putting things in boxes, A plus B equals C mentality. And the change aspect of it is something like that's again in nature. We see that with even just like, okay, think about like a patch of four-leaf clovers, right? Or a patch of clovers, and then you get like the four-leaf clover. That's over time, it's a genetic change that's happening to those plants. We see that in our evolution too, not just us as humans, but in animal evolution, insect evolution, the adaptability and the ability to keep changing, to keep going with the chaos that we're presented. And we're so hard grained to think that, like, especially after, I feel so sad for high school students these days, or just like in general, like since the existence of high schools in Western culture, of being forced to make those decisions at such an early age,
Hmm.
and making them have that assumption that they're supposed to have it all figured out by the time they're 18. It's insane. Like
Yeah.
I'm what, 35 now, and I still have that same mentality as I did then. Like, I'm gonna go, I'm doing the herbalist things. I'm being an herbalist. I'm, put my little badge on, and think that that's the road I'm gonna go. But who knows? Like 5 years from now, I might decide that I want to do something else, and that's okay. It's okay
Hmm.
to be in that sense of change and constant adaptability, because that's what we're supposed to do, in my opinion, anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, adapt or die, right?
Yeah.
The only true constant across the board, anywhere you can look, is change.
Yeah.
And that's why, the monks tell us that unattachment is the path to happiness. You just don't be attached to anything.
Right.
Let the colors of the wind guide you or whatever. And that's actually how you figure out who you are, because those
Mm-hmm.
little pieces, if you go and study this for 5 years and then you turn around and study something completely different for 5 years and then you study something after that for 5 years, that's that's not a waste. You didn't waste 5 years studying this. You gained a healthy foundation for that topic, and now you're going to take that over here and build on it with another topic, and then you're going to take that and that at the end of the day, because we give a lot of the maiden, the mother, the crone, right? We give a lot, our society gives a lot of power to the maiden, and then starts to diminish the power of the mother, and then leaves the crone to the wayside completely.
Right.
And we're not actually expected, if we're talking from a grand scheme of things, like yes, society expects, but crone, when we hit the crone hood, is when we actually have all these pieces of life that we bring together to make something plausible for the next generation, the people around us, all of that. Uh, I would butcher the crap out of the science that I'm fixing to talk about, but we're like the only species, we're not the only species, I think whales do it also, that has a specific point in time where the females stop being able to reproduce. And they've studied this and like, this is so weird. Why is this a thing? And what they've concluded is that it's really important because motherhood is dangerous, right? Reproducing is dangerous. I could go on a tangent about that for ages too, because I was a birth doula for a while, and I would like to get back into it, but with small children, it's kind of hard when you don't have a village of support to like, hey, 3 a.m., got to go to the hospital. Can you take my children? Make sure they get to school.
Yeah.
But so like, although I say loosely it's dangerous, it's also a natural thing. And anyway, they concluded that it's important for biology and the survival of the ultimate best of the species for the females to stop reproducing at a certain time so that all of their energy and safety, like they're safe and all they can do is focus on helping upbring and teaching knowledge. And it's essentially where the wise woman comes into play, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, and that can also go back to like village life too. Like there's a time and place for the old crone to be in the village, and that's her new path. I
And
think
she's respected, and people come to
yeah.
her for all the things, like not only ailments, but advice and
Yeah.
problems and direction.
And I think right now, using all of that to say like, um, I think right now it's almost like I feel like we're expected to be um all three at once. Like we're expected to be the wise woman, we're expected to be the maiden and be youthful and pretty forever, and we're also expected to bear children and keep the evolution going of our species. And that's where another big disconnect is all of that pressure is being put on us. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired. uh,
Yeah.
I think a lot of women are. And um, and we see that in different, like protests and things that go on. And it's almost like I don't know, I feel energetically, I feel like there's an acknowledgement of that exhaustion and an even more desperate attempt to try to suppress it and like keep us further down. So I feel like that's why we're seeing more and more like anti-feminist movements, or like the trad wife kind of mentality of like trying to push us back down and say, no, no, we want you to stay this way, you have to stay this is what it's always been like. And trying to gaslight us into thinking that we can't have our individual powers and transition from one state to another in our womanhood, in our girlhood, womanhood, cronehood, whatever you want to call it, and just accept one role at a time.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm to some extent like it can be, I don't know, like it can be cool to be a beautiful maiden, mother, crone, wise woman all at one time, but it's not sustainable
No.
in the way that we're formulated.
Hmm.
And it overwhelms us to the point where like, I mean, you could even, I think nature has a way of correcting itself.
Hmm.
And she will always get what she's coming for. She will always find a way to bring us back to balance. Um, and like I wouldn't be surprised if birth rates were not directly tied to something along that lines of us being expected to be all the things at once instead of um, just one thing or the other, on top of the other environmental things that are going on and all the other garbage. But to me, that's another indicator of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing what we're doing right now as a
Yeah.
society.
Old habits die hard, for sure.
Yeah.
And being a woman had, okay, again, back in village times, everything was simpler. You kind of had a handful of options that you could more or less choose from. And if you, because we have indigenous populations around the world right now that live like our ancestors did thousands of years ago, right? And most of them are incredibly happy
Yeah.
just by default because they have a purpose and they understand their life, like they know that they have to go hunting and foraging in order to eat, and they all go do that together, and they all come back to the village and they prepare the food together, and the children play together, and people joke around and hang out by the fire and leisure about for a little bit, maybe go chop some wood, it's simple. And we have the examples of our elders to look up to. I'm going to get on 100 tangents on this. The school system, how we've set it up by grade level, really does us all an injustice because uh, if you, and we can compare this, we can compare traditional school children to homeschooled children. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about that. But if you children aren't supposed to be divvied up by age. They're supposed to be all put together because that's how they learn to develop into maturity. The younger ones look up to the older ones, and they can see it. They can be like, "Oh, Jimmy's just a couple of years older than me, so I'm closer to being his big like him rather than I am close to being big like Connor. And so they're like, okay, I gotta, so they can see a stepping stone. And the little ones learn how to mature and gain responsibility through the example of the older ones. And the older ones learn how to be patient and compassionate and gentle with the younger ones. So we all have these examples and experiences that allow us to grow. And like the girls are like, "Oh, the bigger girls are so pretty and so mature, and I want to be like that." And then the boys are like, "Oh, the bigger boys are so strong and capable, and I want to be like that." And that's something that I'm seeing in our Cub Scouts. Like they're always looking up to the ones that are just in the next rank above them because they can see the differences between themselves and the younger ones. And but like you put them all together and they're interacting with each other. In the school system, they're all divided up, so they don't really see each other except in the hallways for a second, so they don't really know. And we don't really have that example anymore for, like even us, like we don't have any elders that we can look up to, really.
Yeah.
So, us- uh, our generation has been, I don't like to generalize generations. Like, the generational wars was a thing a few years ago and is starting to come down from being a thing, but. Millennials have felt like they needed to raise not only themselves but their parents, and then their grandparents were just kind of like, I don't know. I had great grandparents, but when I was growing up, I didn't have any girls that were a little bit older than me that I could hang around. I didn't have any, like I had my grandmothers, but other than that, I didn't really have any positive female influences too much. Some aunts, I guess. But mostly I just had my cousins, which were boys, and my dad and my uncles, and they were constantly, you hit like a girl, you throw like a girl, you run like a girl, yada, 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 whatever. So there were no examples for me to be like, oh, I'm a girl. I can wear pretty dresses. I can be like this. I can do this. Because uh, I didn't see any like strong femininity, strong positive femininity. I suppressed everything feminine about myself almost, would not wear dresses, would not go near the color pink, uh, only wore blue, like just ridiculous things. And thought I was a tomboy until my daughter was born. Lo and behold, I am actually quite girly. I just didn't know. So my goal was to raise her with none of the constrictions that I had. And this allowed her to like flourish into whoever she was inside because, again, each and every single one of us are completely different. And we want to compress that and shape it. People are not clay, but that's exactly how we treat everybody. The older ones think that the younger ones that's how we treat everybody. It's not just older and younger. It's we do this in relationships. We do this in
Yeah.
platonic relationships and romantic relationships. Instead of taking a person and just giving them the space, holding the safe place for them to flourish and grow, and you just watch them and you love them from like a close distance, 10
Yeah.
feet, 20 feet, not far, but you give them the space to flourish, just like in a garden, if that you can crowd them out. And they need to have, you just watch them, like, I see you need more water. You want some water?
Yeah. We've
We're,
misconceived what tradition is. We've instead of like
yeah.
tradition being what we're supposed to feel and move towards in a flow state. Tradition is these are the rules that we followed for 100 plus years, so we have to continue following those rules.
Right. Women do the cooking, the cleaning, yada yada, and men do the physical labor. Right. That's exactly what we've done. We've lost the point. We missed the point entirely.
Yeah,
It's like generally
it's
speaking, this was how things were formulated, but we haven't given
and I
people wiggle room.
yeah, and I think the reason there's not like even it feels like it's more like leaning towards like holding on to the traditions more tightly instead of like readjusting and readapting to what it should be primally.
Yes.
And I think the reason we do that is because there is some truth to it. So like with the talking about the villages and the Maiden and the Crone and the uh, like women are traditionally more nurturing to the kids. That's
Hmm.
scientifically proven. That's,
Hmm.
spiritually proven. Like we see that in every facet of life. We feel it, we know it, right?
Hmm.
You love your child in a different way than your husband might. Um, and that's not to say it's you can't, it's hard to compare. But there is that level of truth that follows those rules that we've made. Just like with anything, we take something and then we have to put it on paper and like make it into a box so we can pass it on to future generations instead of just like showing them or letting them figure it out for themselves. We're trying to shove it down their throat and make it easier, but in reality we're just making everything 10 times more complicated for ourselves and like uh, ruining the the um, the naturalness of ourselves in that way.
Yeah, I think holidays are a good example.
Yeah.
Exactly how I feel. And that was what originally turned me on to the Wheel of the Year in the first place, is that I was so frustrated with the obligation and turmoil that came with all of the holidays. They were just
Mm-hmm.
riddled with stress. And I was like, why have we collectively decided to do this to ourselves year after freaking year when I don't see very many people who are having a good time here? I don't
Yeah.
understand. And like doing research, it was, it's supposed to be about togetherness and spending time with your loved ones. And people hearing this who don't get it, they're like, well, that's what we're doing. No, it's really not though. We're, you know, following the quote unquote traditions that are leaving us stressed out through obligations and fighting, honestly, because if you have any kind of significantly sized family, you're running to several different functions at every holiday, and nobody's happy because they're not the primary function that you're trying to run to. But the thing is that like if you have four different functions in the same day, nobody's becoming a priority, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's mad that they're not a priority when we could. Imagine this. Imagine back in village times, it was the harvest or whatever, right? That was a holiday that pretty much every village celebrated was the harvest. And then everybody in the village came together to celebrate and feast. And it was oftentimes a 3-day event that everybody could just let their hair down and relax and hang out, and the kids could play and the adults could chat, and it was relaxed, it was supposed to be a celebration of we've done all of the work. We've done the work through this period of the year, and now we get 3 days to just hang out and celebrate the abundance and be grateful that we have the abundance because the rains came this year and it wasn't a drought, and we're not going to starve through the winter. And now we can all collectively plan how to move forward and store the food and make the meal plans and whose job's going to be this, any volunteers. It was a collaboration on life. It was a
Yeah.
celebration of the collaboration of life. We worked together and now we have this abundant harvest, and now we get to celebrate. Whereas now it's just like, well, we've been running around day in and day out, doing all of the things mostly by ourselves, feeling lonely, feeling tossed to the wayside, like nobody cares. The hilarious thing is that every single one of us feels like this. So it's like you have 15 people in your life, and every single one of them feels lonely because we're all so we don't realize that they feel the exact same way that we do. So we think that, oh, why haven't they reached out to us? Why haven't they asked us how we're doing? And it's like, well, they're also waiting on you to do that exact same thing. There are no, like there are natural leaders, but they're so rare. Leadership, because that is essentially what that is, being the person that decides to be the one to reach out and try to, you know, talk to people, collaborate, reformulate, like create new traditions that, if you see the needs that the people around you have, and then you talk to them and you try to collaborate on a better way of moving forward that supports the whole in a healthier way. That is leadership. And the unfortunate truth that nobody wants to hear is that for the vast majority, it's a choice. It's not an attribute you're born with. It's something you decide to do despite of fear, despite of rejection, despite because no matter what you do, a leadership position paints a target on your back, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's scary because, we're all already people pleasers. We're all already trying to make everybody like us, which is a losing battle from the get-go. But if you're in a position of leadership, you can't make anybody happy, no matter if you're in a position of leadership or not. It's not a thing. You can't actually make every single person happy. So choosing that leadership's always going to put a target on your back. There's always going to be people mad at you. And that's hard for people. That's especially if you're not secure in who you are and the choices that you make and the life you lead and the, whatever, whatever, whatever. It's hard.
Yeah. And I don't see many people it feels like there's a decline in people stepping up to take those responsibilities because historically we've seen um, people getting taken down so easily.
Hmm.
um, but I think it's also that disconnection of understanding our individuality and accepting our each other for those individualities. Me and my dad talk about this all the time. Like, we've seen in different family circles how it just seems like there's this energy of I don't know if it's like an overall exhaustion for people or of like the expectations that we put in on ourselves, especially around the holidays, right? Like we have to have these rules in place and that makes us exhausted, but like how often we're supposed to see each other, how often we're supposed to call each other, all these rules we put in place. But I think that's one thing in like families. It seems like they drift further and further apart because we forget not only that we're all individual and that even if we have something in common and we might like some of the same things or live similar lives, we're still very very different. But accepting those differences and not placing like um, like certain rules on how you're supposed to talk to that person, talking to them the same way you would talk to anybody else, and treating everybody the same way keeps us from, um, you know, getting down, like separating ourselves from each other. And we see that in the politics and all that crap that goes on, especially in families and the way that people believe in different religions or um, they have these very passionate beliefs that they have within themselves, but they're not able to see the individuality of each person in order to accept them and empathize with, oh well, they might think differently than me. um, and that's okay. Like it's okay to still have a decent conversation with somebody. You don't even have to talk about the things that you agree or disagree with. Just treating them like you would anybody else. It's really sad that I see that not only in families but like different circles of like community circles too. And nobody wants to be the leader and bring everybody together because then we have everybody feeling this ego trip of feeling entitled to their passionate belief and thinking that it's better than another belief, and then we just have even more division instead of understanding our individualities.
Yeah, we've developed an attack culture.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon it's very them versus us, but the funny thing is there's not any there us is an illusion,
Yeah.
because every single person, we're not gonna there's gonna be belief systems in every single person that don't align with another person. Like, you're not gonna find anybody, not a single person who 100% believes every single thing that you do exactly how you do. And we've lost the art of finding common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of and we've also seen here's the problem. Here's a big problem with our society is that nobody wants to be the leader, and the people who do want to be the leader probably should not be the leader
Yeah.
because it the the amount of pressure that is on leaders to, keep the peace and make the decisions and formulate the whatever it is in a structural way that is best supports the majority best you can. All of that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of responsibility. And those who want that are usually doing it for ego purposes or
Yeah.
um, some sort of manipulation or something like that. So that's what I realized when I was in my early 20s. I was looking around. I was like, someone needs to do something. And then I was like, well, who? Who's going to do something? And oh crap, I guess I'm a person that could do something. And a simple example I use is like I was driving down the road one time and there was a turtle like flipped over in the road or something. And I was like, oh man, I hope somebody stops and helps that turtle before it gets ran. Oh, I guess I'm a person that could do that. So I turned around and I went and got the turtle out of the street. And I like that simple example because, it makes it smaller. It makes being a leader smaller. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Every single one of us are capable of itty bitty teeny tiny leadership acts every single
Yeah.
day. We're always coming across opportunities to step into that leadership role, whether it's, with our children or with our community or within our friend groups or family dynamics. It doesn't take much. And, little tiny ripples go a long way. And you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to know what the right answer is. And it's even better if you're open about, I don't know what the right answer is, you guys.
Yeah.
But I'm capable of patiently sitting here with you guys, talking about it, exploring what we can, and doing our best to make a decision for the time being. It doesn't have to be concrete. We can always rework things later. It's not that deep. And
Yeah.
we think everything's deep. Everything's that deep,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be. Like, just freaking smile, freaking enjoy what you can, where you can, as often as you can. I keep coming back to in episodes. It's like every single episode I've talked about suicide, or at least touched on it, and how there's a 12-year-old in Huntsville that killed herself last week. Did you hear about that?
No.
It's all over Facebook. And such a pretty little girl, which, doesn't matter what she looks like, but it just breaks my heart that a 12-year-old killed herself. And these kids, it's so common these days, and they don't see what the point of. life and society is, and they don't understand, and we've made things way too complicated and way too serious. It's way too serious.
Yes.
And that's the
Yes.
problem. Nobody knows how to just relax and have fun. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, at the end of our 100 years, whatever we get, we're all going to end up at the same place anyway.
Yeah.
And so we spend all of this energy and all of the stress trying to do the best that we can and live up to the expectations that we've created and have been created for us. And for what? We've missed the point. Life is meant to be enjoyed. And the more you can enjoy it, the more fun it is and relaxing it is for everyone around you. And then you're teaching them how to be happy despite what's going on over there or over here, despite what that person thinks, despite all the turmoil that we're all just drenched in all the time. How to find happiness and joy in the smallest of things. And that means slowing down and learning how to take things moment by moment and how like the world's not going to fall apart if you don't jump right up and start doing your chores, you know.
Yeah.
This morning I usually my husband does rotating swing shifts, so sometimes he's on days and sometimes he's on nights. And if he's on days, I usually when I put my daughter on the bus to go to school, I just start doing the things. I start getting the chores done. I start getting ready for the day and I go tend to the chickens. I do the things, right? Well, today I worked out a lot yesterday and the day before. And so I got up this morning, I put her on the bus and I was just like, I am not sleepy per se, but my body is exhausted.
Yeah.
So I crawled back in bed for an hour. And used to, I would beat myself up for that so badly because
Yeah.
what are you doing? Are you serious? You went back to bed? It is daylight outside. What are you doing? We have things
The
to do.
atrocity.
Absolutely terrible, right? Like, I'm going to amount to nothing. I am such a waste of life. But luckily, today I just laid there and I kind of drifted in and out of sleep a couple of times, but I never actually like fell back asleep. But essentially, it was a meditation, right? Like I
Yeah.
laid there and I was breathing. And I was like, I didn't want to, I was on my phone. I checked my notifications and then I set it down because I have the awareness that my phone steals my energy. And it doesn't,
Oh, yeah.
not necessarily even like when it doesn't have to be like scrolling or like it feels yucky. I can be productive on my phone and it still saps my energy. You know, something
Yeah.
about like I don't know the screen or the electronic. I don't know what it is, but so I just set it down and I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and let my body rest and restore because our bodies are. I do a lot of nervous system stuff. That's the backbone of my yoga practice and whatnot. And so our body is either in fight or flight or it's in rest, digest, and heal. And most of us stay in that fight or flight 100% of the time. Only slipping into rest, digest, and heal maybe when we're asleep, if we can get a really good restful sleep going. But there is nothing more productive than managing your stress levels so that your body can operate the way it needs to operate so that you can stay healthy. Because if you don't have your
Absolutely.
health, what exactly does the rest of this matter?
Yeah.
You can't get out of bed. You know, if you get to the end, towards the end of your life, you get in your cronehood and you're in your 60s, which isn't as old as it used to be. Think like
Yeah.
because we have modern medicine and advancements in technology that we're living a lot longer. But you make it to 60. Say you avoid all of the car crashes because that's primarily what's going to take us out, right? You avoid all the car crashes and you've made it to your 60th birthday, but you've been so stressed out and haven't done the work to take care of yourself up into here up to this point. So now you can't get around, and getting out of bed is hard, and you can't hang out with your grandkids because you're too sick, and now you're going in for surgery after surgery. Oh no, now you need these 5 pills, and insurance doesn't want to cover it. Like whatever it is, nothing's more important than our health and our well-being and our stress levels by default. But that is like the bottom of the food chain as far as priorities go for most people.
Yeah. We're trained not to listen to our bodies, not to accept our individuality, and to constantly push to make that money to fuel the greater good, um, which is probably like 5 people up at the top, instead of fueling all of us together. And that starts with taking care of ourselves. It's again that village mentality. We can't If we can't take care of ourselves, then we can't fulfill our roles. And by the time that we've established this retirement age, well, the reason is because they're no good for anything anymore in society's eyes, because they can't move as well as they used to, because they're not as vibrant in health as they should be, because we've been trained not to take care of our health. Like it's just a domino effect that's happening. And we've got to do better. We just as a society, as a whole, we've got to focus on what truly matters.
Yeah. And sometimes what matters is, man, I could go on for another hour. I'm trying to wrap it up for you.
Yeah, I could
I,
too. It's okay.
I saw a meme yesterday on Facebook. It was a little cartoon. It was two little it had an old man who with a cane sitting in a armchair was the top picture, and the bottom picture was the same old man on a treadmill or something. And it was like, don't let old age happen to you. Train for it.
Yeah.
I loved it. That one
That's
of the
great.
ladies I play pickleball with shared it, and she was like, "This is what I've been working on." And she's doing so good. She's probably in her 70s. She was a midwife, and so a little bit more inclined to things like me and you were inclined to. So probably did a little bit of upkeep beforehand, but that's exactly what I am also training for, I suppose, because I would like to be able to do for myself as long as I possibly can. I think it's selfish not to try to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the people around you. You don't have the capacity for what they need from people. And it's ultimately a think globally, act locally type
Yeah.
of thing. We all there's this thing is like everybody wants to be the hero, but nobody wants to help mom with the dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's finding magic in the mundane is the secret to life, or the secret to happiness. You got to figure out how to be happy where you're at with what you have, or you're always going to, if you're stuck in the momentum of chasing happiness, you're always going to be chasing happiness. It doesn't matter what you think is going to, well, when I get married, I'm going to be happy. When I have kids, I'll finally get married. Be happy. When I make this X amount of money, I'll finally be happy. It's always going to be another level. And you're not,
Yeah.
honestly, most of the time we don't even realize when we make it to that level. Maybe we
Hmm.
realize it for like a day, and then we sink right back into our patterns and our habits and we forget. So, and then we're bored, like, oh man, I wish it's happiness in the mundane. You got to find little bitty things, and nature's a great way to start.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I had a ton of different points to touch on. I can't, like I always do notes, and I didn't reach any of my notes, but I'm also glad that I didn't need any of my notes because we
Yeah.
flowed pretty well. This was fun. I'd love to have you on again sometime if you'd like. We can.
Oh yeah, you're amazing to talk to. I think we have a lot in common too. So that's really cool.
I think so
Have
too.
fun.
And maybe one day I can get to these notes about herbalism and stuff that I had actually
Oh
made.
yeah. Yeah. Get into the beauty of nature.
Yeah, yeah. So tell people where to find you,
Well,
what you do.
I'm an herbalist and a wellness consultant, and I do herbal consultations, and I make fun herbal stuff. I teach kids classes, adults classes, but you can usually find me through my emails. Always the best way because I'm very bad about being on social media. I'm trying to not engage as much as possible, but I am on Patreon. I do all my classes on there for free. And then if you want to buy me a cup of coffee once a month, you can get a little bit of extra stuff too. Um, and it's all at Sacred Spirit Herbals is my handle, and sacredspiриtherbals.com. Um, and I'll be teaching at Driftwood Driving and Fly. And pretty soon, I'm also going to be teaching at there's a little boutique in Madison called the Rustic Awning Boutique. So I'll be teaching there as well. So
Cool. Yeah, I think a lot of us fell into the social media trap for as far as like making businesses work and
mm-hmm.
marketing and whatnot. And I say recently, over the past year, year and a half, figured out that all good business transactions happen in emails.
Yep, I'm a firm
So
believer in that too.
yep. So and with that has come a lot of bias and judgments that, because none of us are perfect. We're all human. We're all working with the same garbage computer system that everybody else is working with for the most part. And so we can try to be non-judgy and non-biased and non-egocentric and all the things that make us a good person, which I think that is the point of religion, if at its bare bones, is helping you figure out how to release the ego essentially and think more compassionately and community oriented. But people who don't want to navigate or manage their email boxes. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you want to succeed? Are you sure? Are you sure? Um, I had somebody the other day, they're like, I was at a mahjong party and I took a
Oh,
video.
fun.
Yeah, it's been a new hobby of mine that I'm enjoying a lot. And I took a little video of the mahjong tiles because everything was so pretty. And for my personal Facebook stories is what I like to post on. It's kind of like a videography, little short snippet videography things, or has always been an art form that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And so like I really will. I post Facebook stories all day, every day almost, and I just sit and rewatch them over and over and over again myself. So
Oh,
and she was like, "Oh, are you doing that? You do a lot of social media stuff for your business? Is that where this is going?" And I was like, "Oh no, this is just for me. I post on social media like twice a month with like the it's usually the schedule, the yoga schedule for the month because it changes every week, every month. And then like one type of informational something another. But I have Patreon too. I've had Patreon for about 2 years now, and I like that setup because I had a website for 10 years that I was posting content on. So like long form articles and videos with extra information and that kind of stuff. And it was just so a website is just so disconnected, I feel, from the ecosystem that social media has created. Everybody's kind of like on that. So unless they have a very specific question that Google decides you're the best answer for, you're kind of like screaming into the void. But
yeah.
Patreon is similar to Spotify in its setup as where you can like search for content that you're interested in. So I really like how they formulate things. So I moved from my website to Patreon about 2 years ago, and it's been a wonderful decision just for
That's
a
good.
lot of reasons. So much easier to take care of, more streamlined and whatnot. But I was super excited to see that you also had a Patreon because I've never met anybody in real life that, there's people online, of course, and like through
Yeah.
doing the podcast, I've collected a library of people who do similar things to you and I on as far as like internet content goes. But to see someone in real life, like I was in the same room as you. That's so cool because
Yeah.
I don't get that often, you know? Anyway.
I'm very new to it, but I've enjoyed it, and I think it's a great tool to, especially like staying away from meta and fueling the fire that's burning quietly. I'm trying to do better about that and not worry about the numbers of who's subscribing or anything like that, but just being there, and like it's in its own little art form, you
Hmm.
know, putting yourself, memories or whatever you want to call it, having a backlog of all the classes that I've done. I like to go back and kind of see what I've learned over the course of time, and kind of teaching myself in the process. So it's been good so far.
Yeah. You have to, you can't do the numbers. You can't play the numbers games. You have to just do it because you love it. That's
Yeah,
it.
that makes a
And that's,
difference.
it does. And it's hard, especially when uh you're super passionate about it and it feels like nobody else cares at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you like how do you guys not see how fantastic this is and how it's going to solve maybe not all your problems, but maybe 5% of your problems, and that's like a good
Yeah.
chunk, like it's a step in the right direction. Yeah, I get it. It's frustrating, but that's why you got to come back into yourself and just do it because you love it. Do it because you
Yeah.
can't not, because I've tried quitting a million times and
Yep.
it just can't do it.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
We'll
Thank
let
you for
everybody
having me.
go.
Bye.